G major scale tone triad voice leading. This is voice leading for the G major chord, the 1 chord, progressing to the B minor chord. So the root movement is G to B. The root name movement is G to B, which is a third, G, A, B. And then back to G and to E minor. From G to E minor is a root movement down a third, G, F sharp, E. First I'll show you the arcs of all the notes so you know where each of the notes are in each one of the chords, and then I'll put them together in order such as G, B minor, G, E minor. But first here are all the notes in the G arc. This is the notes of a G major bar chord, including the third, or B. You can also play the first in bar 1, the first chord and the last chord, and add those notes together. So the 4 3-note chords made from that are strings 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, and 6, 5, 4. Next, the B minor arc. It's in the A minor. This is like an A minor chord moved up using these fingers. But in the bass it has these 2 notes. This is the flat third D and the root B. And you could again play that by playing the first chord in bar 2 and the last chord in bar 2. It's all those notes combined. Then the E minor arc. It's in the D minor. This is like a D minor chord moved up 2 frets. In the D minor form, and it has all these notes. I'm doubling the note on the first string, on the 4th string. And then it has these notes in the bass, both on the 7th fret, the E root, and the B, which is the 5th, making this chord. And you can play that by playing the first chord in bar 3 and the last chord in bar 3 and combining them. Now they'll put all these together and play the root movement. For root name up a third, such as G to B, the voice leading is that the root goes down a scale step. For the root name going down a third, like G to E, G, F sharp, E is 3 letters. The 5th of the chord goes up a scale step, up a scale tone. So those 4 chords are G, B minor taking the root down a scale step, and back to G, and then E minor taking the 5th up a scale step. Next, on the strings 4, 3, 2, G major, that's root, 3rd, 5th, and to go to B minor we need to descend the root a scale tone, and back to G, and then to go to E minor we need to ascend the 5th a scale tone. Next, on strings 5, 4, 3, G major tones 5, 1, 3. To go to B minor, the root has to go down a scale tone, so from here to here. So bar there. Back to G, and then to go to E minor, the 5th, this is 5th root 3rd, 5th root 3rd. I have to raise the root a scale tone, so that's G minor to, G to E minor. And then on string 6, 5, 4, this is the G with 3rd, 5th root, and to go to B minor, I have to lower the root 1 scale tone. Back to G, you go to E minor, you have to raise the 5th. This is 3rd, 5th root. You have to raise the 5th, a scale tone. G major scale tone triad voice leading in the C form area of G. That's at the 7th fret here, with the 7th fret barred with the first finger and the remaining fingers fretting like a C chord, except in the bass, fret both of these notes with a little finger. Or to play that in a couple of easy chords, the first 3 strings are always the same tones as the 3 bass strings in these arcs. So this is 5th root 3rd, then the bass one here, the 4th chord you see there in bar 8, is also 5th root 3rd. So you could summarize all the notes like that, or with this bar chord, where I'm using the little finger to bar right there. And the B minor arc is in the E form, and you could bar these 2 strings with the 3rd finger and put the little finger here. Or again, you could play the first chord in that bar 9 and the last chord, and that'll give you the same notes. Then the E minor, that's the root down a 3rd from G, G, F sharp, E, to E minor. It's an A form, so it's like an A minor chord from first position up here at the 7th fret. And the bass notes that are added on this, root E and the 5th string G, that's the root and flat 3rd of E, making that chord. Or again, just to play the first and last chord to summarize the notes an easier way, like that and that. Now we're doing the voice leading, G to B minor, G to E minor on each of the string groups, with G here on the first 3 strings, and then here on strings 4, 3, 2, then we'll do it here on 5, 4, 3, and then here on 6, 5, 4. So on 3, 2, 1, the voice leading is the root descends a scale tone of G to become B minor. Whenever the root name goes up a 3rd, G, A, B, up a 3rd, the voice leading is that the root goes down a scale tone. Wording it that way, you could be dealing with any scale tone chord, and the rule could be stated the same way, because you're talking about a scale tone which may be a half step in parts of the scale, or a whole step in other parts of the scale, or in harmonic minor it might be a step and a half, it might be a 3 fret interval. These are all in the major scale, 1 or 2 fret intervals called half steps for 1 fret, or whole steps for 2 frets. So here we have G on the first 3 strings, and we descended the root to get B minor, and then G with tones 5, 1, 3, and we need to raise the 5th for the root name to go down a 3rd. G down to E minor for the root name, G, F sharp, E, down a 3rd. The voice leading is the root of the chord, the 5th of the chord, goes up a scale tone. So we have 5th root 3rd, the 5th goes up to the 6th. Then next on strings 4, 3, 2, the G chord is 3rd, 5th root, and we need to descend the root 1 scale tone to get B minor. We go back to G and ascend the 5th root, 3rd, 5th root, this is the 5th, and ascend the 5th 1 scale tone to get E minor. And then G on strings 5, 4, 3 is root 3rd, 5th, and we descend the root to get B minor. We go back to G and ascend the 5th, root 3rd, 5th, ascend the 5th to get E minor. Here I'm barring strings 4 and 3. So G, B minor, G, E minor. Then on the bass strings, this is 5th root 3rd, and to go to B minor we descend the root, and I can prepare by having this barred on the 5th and 4th string. G, descend the root, B minor, back to G. Now this is 5th root 3rd, and to go to E minor, root down a 3rd, the voice leading is the 5th needs to go up a step. So this 5th needs to go up a scale tone, like that. So G, B minor, G, E minor. G major scale tone triad voice leading up a third and down a third. Root movement, up a third, G to B minor, or down a third, root name, G down to E minor. First, the arcs of each of the chords. G is in a C form. This is like capering the 7th fret and making a C chord with the remaining fingers, but bar, string 6 and 5 with the little finger. And you can play those notes also by playing the first chord in bar 8 and the last chord in bar 8. Then combine those. Then the 4 arcs from that, the 4 triads from that on 3 consecutive strings are 3-2-1, 4-3-2, 5-4-3, and string 6-5-4. Then the B minor chord is in the E minor, D minor form arc and has all the notes of this B minor bar chord, except on the 6th string, this note, the flat 3rd. Also, you can play it by playing the first chord in bar 9 and the last chord in bar 9. E minor is in the A minor form, and you need to add these 2 notes on the bass strings, the root E and the flat 3rd G, and you can play that by playing the first chord in bar 10 and the last chord in bar 10, making those notes. Now the voice leading, G to B minor on the first 3 strings, lower the root G to go to B minor, back to G, raise the 5th of G, this is the 5th root 3rd, raise the 5th, go to E minor. Then on strings 4-3-2, this is 3rd, 5th root, you need to lower the root to go to B minor, so the root's going down a third, or up a third rather. G to B minor, and then G to E minor, root name down a third, raise the 5th, 3rd, 5th root, the 5th here needs to get raised. So there's E minor, you can see it's like part of this E minor bar chord. Then on string 6-5-4, or 5-4-3 rather, this is G with root 3rd, 5th, descend the root a scale tone to go to B minor, back to G, ascend the 5th, root 3rd, 5th, ascend the 5th to go to E minor. Now strings 6-5-4, G is 5th, root 3rd, and we need to descend the root to go to B minor. That's this. And then back to G. And we need to ascend the 5th. This is 5th, root 3rd to go to E minor. G major scale tone triad voice leading in the E form for G. First I'll show the arc of notes coming down the G chord like this. And then for the other 2 chords I'm going to, this is root movement up a 4th and down a 4th, G to C and G to D. First the G arc is E form, and it's like a G bar chord, but here in the bass I'm adding the 3rd, so the tones go down the chord with root 5th 3rd, then repeating root 5th 3rd in the bass. And you could summarize those with these 2 chords. Play 3rd 5th root, speaking them going upwardly now. 3rd 5th root here, and the 4th chord in that bar 22, 3rd 5th root in the bass. So that gives you the same notes as this. 3 note groups of those are strings 3-2-1, 3rd 5th root, 4-3-2, strings 4-3-2 are root 3rd 5th, strings 5-4-3 are 5th root 3rd, and strings 6-5-4 are 3rd 5th root. Then the C chord, so the root name's going up a fourth, G, A, B, C, inclusively 4 letters. And the C arc is in an A form, in the treble, and in the bass it's in a G form, like taking these notes of a 4-finger G chord, the 2 bass notes, and moving them here as part of this C form bar chord, G form bar chord. It's a C bar chord, but the form is G. These 2 bass notes and these notes from the A form, or you could barely reach this and fret all of them. Or fret the first chord in bar 23 and the last one. Each one is root third, fifth, root third, fifth. That summarizes the notes too. And the 3-string groups in that are root third, fifth, fifth root third on the 4-3-2, strings 4-3-2, then 5-4-3 are third, fifth root, and the bass on 6-5-4, string 6-5-4 is root third, fifth. Then the D chord is going to be here in the second position, and it's in a C form, as if you're barring the 2nd fret and holding these fingers like a C chord, but in the bass, fret these 2 notes on the 5th fret on the 5th and 4th string, 6th and 5th string, excuse me. Or play the first and last chord in that bar. In D, that's 5th root 3rd, and then down here in the bass, it's same thing, 5th root 3rd. So those put together, or this, either way, plays all of those notes. And the 4 3-string groups are 3rd, 5th root, no, that's 5th root 3rd, sorry, 3rd, 5th root on the strings 4-3-2, then strings 5-4-3 is root 3rd, 5th, and the bass 5th root 3rd. Now we're going to be doing the voice leading from each chord to the next, and when root names go up a fourth, they retain the root. For instance, here's a G chord, and that's the G note. So the root will be retained, and the other 2 scale tones go up a scale tone. So in the G scale, this is like the 3rd, it's going up to the 4th, and this is the 5th, and it's going up to 6th. But by stating the rule that way, root name up a 4th, like G to C, retain the root, and take the other 2 notes up a scale step. It doesn't matter what step of the scale you're in any key, the rule could still work. Like if I'm in D major and this is a 6th chord, B minor, and the D scale goes, and I'm playing the B minor here, and I want my root name to go up a 4th to E minor, the root stays the same. And in the D scale, you could check it out. These 2 notes, going up the scale 1 scale tone each, would go to here. So here's B minor and E minor. That's using that rule, stated the same way. Again, back where we were, the G root is here at the 3rd fret. And this is 3rd, 5th root. And we need to raise the 3rd a scale tone and the 5th a scale tone, so those change while the root is retained here. Then back to G, and then when you take the root name down a 4th, like G, F sharp, E, D, that's down a 4th, then the 5th is retained, the 5th of G is retained, and the other 2 notes go down the scale tone. So here's the 3rd going down to the 2nd, and here's the root going down to the 7th. But they're each going down the scale tone in any case, regardless of what scale tone chord you're building. G, retain this note, take the other ones down a scale tone, and you have D, G to D. That's good to use a redundant bar to play that quickly. Meaning I'm barring 3 strings already here on the G chord. Then when I change to the D, all I have to do is move this finger like this. Then the next voicing is on strings 4, 3, 2. That's root, 3rd, 5th of G. So remember the rule. Root name going up a 4th, G, A, B, C. The root is retained, and the other 2 notes each go up a scale step. That's 3, so it goes up here to 4. And that's 5, goes up a scale step to 6. So in tandem they move like that while the root is retained. You're hearing this note sound straight through the 2 chords. Then back to G, and to go down a 4th, the 5th of the G chord is retained while the other 2 notes go down. So with this rule, it's kind of backwards to the rule for root name up a 3rd or down a 3rd. In this case, when the, like I just said, when the root name goes up a 4th, like G to C, you retain the root and the other 2 notes go up. So the root name's going up and the voices are going up also. And this is what I'm doing right now. When you go down a 4th, the 5th is retained and the other 2 notes besides the 5th, the root and 3rd, go down a scale step each. So you get this to this. So root name goes up and the moving voices go up. Or root name goes down, but this is with 4ths, root names and 4ths. Root name goes down and the other 2 notes go down. When you're doing with 3rds, when you're dealing with 3rds, which we did in an earlier part of this video series, it was like this. The root name G, and you want to go to B minor, that's up, right? G, A, B, the letter name's going up, but the voice leading is that the root of the chord goes down, so it's opposite directions. Or if you go into G to E minor, here's G, and to go to E minor, you have to go G, D, E, root name down a 3rd to E, that's down a 3rd to E. The voice leading is the 5th of the G chord has to go the other direction, up, 1 scale tone. So voice leading in 3rds has root names and voice movement in opposite directions. But scale tone 4ths, they go in the same direction. G to C. Notice the tones are moving up. And the root name is moving up. G, A, B, C. Root name down. G to D. And notice notes are moving down. Easy way to remember. Then when you do the stepwise voices, they're all in tandem. Like, here's the whole scale. On strings 4, 3, 2, G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor. So wherever you are, if you're in like an A minor and you want to go to B minor, all the notes go up. This is all the conservative, closest voice leading that's easy for listeners to follow. You can do an A minor here and you can do a B minor back here, but if you listen to it, that's more of a leap in voices, and this is smoother for the listener. And we're using the conservative voicing in all these. That strategy. So that was first 3 strings, G to C, G to D, root name up a 4th, G, C, down a 4th, G, D. Now the same ones on strings 4, 3, 2. Now we have root, 3rd, 5th of G, retain the root, the other 2 go up, scale down, you have your C. Now root, 3rd, 5th of G, retain the 5th, and take the other ones down. The root name goes down, G, F sharp, E, D, 4, G, F sharp, E, D, 4 letters down for the root name. And the voices other than the 5th, this time, go down also, moving in the same direction as the root. As the root name. The root doesn't actually change. That's, on the voice leading going, the root changes on this going down a 4th, but when you go up a 4th, the one I just did previous, G to C, the root name is going up a 4th, and the other tones are going up stepwise in the same direction. But that isn't to say that the root, when the root moved to a note up a fourth, it's actually staying on the same note. It's the root name. That's why I keep saying root name. G to C is the root name changing, not the actual note changing like that. That would be a huge interval. So this one I just did G to C, G to D, retain the root, move the others up for C, retain the root here, move the others down for D. Then on these strings, 5, 4, 3, here's fifth root, third. Then to go to C, we need to retain the root. Root name's going up a fourth, and the root is in the voice leading being retained while the other two notes go up. So the other two notes were here, and they go up to these. Third's going to the fourth of the scale, and the fifth's going to the sixth, but they're going, in any case, up a scale tone, while the root is being retained in the middle. And then back to G, and to go to D, the root name is going down a fourth, G, F sharp, E, D, down a fourth. But in the voice leading, the fifth stays the same, that's fifth root, third, and the other two notes go down a scale tone, like this. Sorry, wrong position. So G, C, G, D. Then in the bass on string 6, 5, 4, this is G major with third, fifth root, and to go to C, we retain the root, take the other two notes up a scale tone, G, C, back to G, and to go to D, retain the fifth of G, that's this note, and take the other two notes down a scale tone. That's pretty, that sixth interval, while keeping the middle note the same. So those are G, C, G, D. G major scale tone, triad voice leading with the G major triad in the C form here at the 7th fret. Bar the 7th fret with the first finger. With the remaining fingers, make a C form chord as if in first position, but with fingers 2, 3, 4. On the 6th and 5th string, bar those with a little finger. A little awkward, but you can do it. Also, you could play the first chord in bar 29, which is the top 3 strings of those, and the last chord in bar 29, the 3 bass strings, and then put all that together. And these voice leadings will encompass 3 major scales, 3 major scale fingerings. This is what I call G major scale fingering 2. It's commonly called Dorian. It would be A Dorian, but G major scale fingering 2 because this is scale tone 2 of G major. And this is an in position fingering. Notice on the 3 bass strings it's double whole steps on all 3. Only 2 notes on this string. And ascending whole step, half step on the 2nd string and the 1st string. And as usual, the 1st and 6th string are the same. Then it'll use G major scale fingering 3, 1, 2, 3, commonly called B Phrygian. And this pattern is digitally fingers 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3 only, and then 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. So the 6th string and the first 2 strings are fingers 1, 2, 4. And these 2 strings are fingers 1, 3, 4. And this is only 1, 3. And then this fingering 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or C Lydian. I'm in the 9th position, reaching back 1 fret on some of the strings, like this. And this is fingers 1, 2, 4, a double whole step, and then this is, notice, up 1 fret. 2 strings with half whole ascending, then the 3rd string with a whole half ascending, 2nd string only fingers 2, 4, and then the first string 1, 2, 4. So the sixth and the first string are the same, and the fifth and the fourth string are the same. Third string's unique. The second string is just these two notes. Okay. Back to the G in the C form at the 7th fret. The arc of those notes, as I mentioned earlier, including these two notes, on the first three strings is 3rd, 5th root. The next three strings, 4, 3, 2, is 3rd, 5th root, 5th root, 3rd, and then 3rd, 5th root. Then on these strings, root, 3rd, 5th, and down on the bass here, 5th root, 3rd. Then the C chord is in an E form here, like an E form bar chord. This E chord moved up and barred behind on the 8th fret. So these are like fretting the E chord, fingers 2, 3, 4. And that needs this one note on the 6th string to make the arc. So the 4 3-string groups are 3rd, 5th root, root, 3rd, 5th, 5th, root, 3rd, and 3rd, 5th root. And you could fret all of that at once like this, or you could play the first chord in bar 30 and the last chord in bar 30 to get all the notes. Then the D chord is back here in the 5th position and running up to the 7th position. Starts in an A form. This is like an A chord barred with the 3rd finger, capoed at the 5th fret, and including this first string note. So it's on the first 4 strings, those notes in the A form. Then the bass, you need this root on the 6th string and 3rd of D on the 5th string. Or you could, well, you could get that with one hand if you're real acrobatic. Or you could play the first chord in bar 31 and the last chord in bar 31. You get the same thing. Here's the voice leading. For root movement up a 4th, that's root name up a 4th, like G to C, the voices go in the same direction, but the root stays the same. That's G. I'm starting with, on the first 3 strings, 5th root, 3rd of G, and the root's going to stay the same while the other 2 notes go up a scale tone each. So that's G to C. Then back to G with 5th root, 3rd, and to go to D, this time the 5th is retained, and the other 2 notes will go down a scale tone, like they're going down in the interval of a 3rd. So that's G to D. Then G on strings 4, 3, 2 has the voicing 3, 5, 1. And to go to C, again, the root G is retained, and the other 2 notes go up a scale tone. So these 2 notes go up here. Well, this is retained. Then back to G. And to go down, retain the 5th of G. Here, this is 3rd, 5th root. Retain the 5th and move the other 2 notes down a scale tone. So you get this G, D. So that bar is G, C, G, D. Then on strings 5, 4, 3, you have G with root, 3rd, 5th. And you're going to retain the root to move the root name up a 4th, G to C. And they are moving the remaining notes up a scale tone each while retaining the G on the 5th string. Now go back to G and retain the 5th this time and move the root in the 3rd here, root 3rd, down a scale tone each, and you get that. I'm barring the 4th and 3rd string here. So then you get G, C, G, D, root up a 4th, G, C, root down a 4th, G, D. Then on the bass strings, you have 5th root 3rd here for the G, and we're going to retain the root to go root name up a 4th to C, G, retain the root, take the other 2 notes up a scale tone each. They're moving in the interval of a 6. While retaining this note in the middle, you get G, C. Back to G, then retain the root. This is retain the 5th. Retain the 5th. This is the 5th, root 3rd, and move the other 2 notes down a scale tone, G to D. So that bar, G is a G, C, G, D. G major scale tone triad voice leading in the A-G form. G is here at the 10th fret on the first 4 strings with an A form, as if first position, barring the 2nd fret with the 3rd finger and leaving the 1st string open. But doing that at the 12th fret with the 3rd finger and the 1st finger on the 1st string, 10th fret. Then on the bass include this G and B, root and 3rd or G chord. I think that's a G form, G chord at the 14th fret, 1st finger at the 14th fret. And that completes the arc. You can also play the same notes by playing the 1st chord in bar 36 on strings 3, 2, 1, and the last one on bar 36 on strings 6, 5, 4. That'll give you all these notes. Then we'll need the C major chord in the C form, starting at the 12th fret. And this is like barring the 12th fret with your 1st finger and making a C form chord with the remaining fingers, and then barring the 2 bass strings with your little finger. And you can also get those by playing the 1st chord in bar 37 and the last chord in bar 37. Combine them and get all these notes. Then we'll need the D chord in the E form at the 10th position. The arc of the D chord has all these notes from a D major bar chord and E form at the 10th fret, and then from a D form, like this is a D chord open position in the D form, and this bass note is the 3rd. So up here, that's akin to this. And we need that 3rd in the bass, so the bar chord with that 3rd. And you can get those notes by playing the 1st chord in bar 38 and the last chord in bar 38 to get all these notes. Then the major scales involved to go from G to C, root name up a 3rd, will be G major scale fingering 4, commonly called Lydian, C Lydian, but in the 9th position I'm reaching back 1 fret with my 1st finger, and this is double whole step on the 6th string, and then at the 9th fret on the 5th and 4th string it ascends half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. On the 3rd string it ascends whole step, half step. On the 2nd string just fingers 2, 4, a whole step, and then the 1st string double whole step, just like the 6th string. So the whole thing goes like, and then G major scale fingering 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the 11th position, 10th position, use the 3rd finger all the way across here at the 12th fret, and it's double whole step on 3 strings. Then on the third string, it's just half step, starting at the 11th fret, ascending. And the second string, it's whole half. And the first string, it's double whole, like the sixth string. Always the first and sixth string are the same fingering and an in position fingering. So that whole thing was this. Then we need fingering 6 of the G major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 7, 6 if you come down. And that's commonly called E Aeolian. And it ascends on the 2 bass strings, whole half. On the 4th string, double whole. On the 3rd string, just whole step. On the 2nd string, half whole. And on the 1st string, whole half, like the 6th string. Whole thing. Now for our voice leading from G to C, that's root name up a 4th, and G on the first 3 strings is root 3rd, 5th, and when root name goes up a 4th, the voice leading is that the other 2 notes, the root is retained, and the other 2 notes ascend. So the root is here, that's going to stay the same. As the other 2 notes go up, in this case they go up in the interval of a 3rd in parallel. G to C, and then back to G, and to go to D, the root name's going down a 4th, so the voices that move are also going down. The 5th of the G is retained, and the remaining notes, the root and the 3rd of G, go down a scale tone each. So G, D. So we have G, C, G, D. Then on strings 4, 3, 2, we're up here at the 12th position, and G is 5th root 3rd. Retain the root on the 3rd string and ascend the other 2 notes, the scale tone, and we've gone G root name up to C root name, and back to G. And to go to D, retain the 5th of G. This was 5th root 3rd, so retain this, the 5th, and take the other 2 notes down the scale tone each, and you get G to D. So that's G, C, G, D. Then we're on strings 5, 4, 3, still in the 12th position. And in G, it's 3rd, 5th root, and we need to retain the root for the root name to go up to C, retain the root of G, and take the other 2 notes here up a scale tone, and moving in a 3rd. So G to C, and then G to D, retain the 5th this time, that's on the 4th string, while we're moving the remaining notes down a scale tone. They're moving in a 6th. G to D, that's root name down a 4th. So that bar was G to C, G to D. Then in the bass we have G to C with the root staying the same and the other 2 notes ascending. Then back to the G with the 5th staying the same and the other 2 notes going down. G and the other 2 notes here going down in the interval of a 3rd. So G to D. G major scale tone, triad voice leading, where G is in the E-D form. Mostly this G major bar chord in the E form, but also this note from the D form. Like here's a D form G at the 5th fret. We need this one note, so you could use the bar chord but add this note on the 6th string to illustrate it with your picking hand finger. Or you can play the first chord in bar 43 and the last chord and put those together and get the same notes. Then the arcs of the A minor chord, because our root movement is major scale tone root movement up a step, G to A minor, and then we'll do G to F sharp diminished, not diminished seventh, but F sharp diminished. So G to A minor, and then we'll do G to F sharp diminished. And the arc of notes for the A minor is here in the E form, E minor form. Is mostly like the G chord, mostly in this A minor bar chord, which is like an E minor barred at the 5th fret. But bar these two strings with the 3rd finger and include this note on the 6th string, 8th fret to get the flat 3rd in the bass. Or you could play the first chord and the last chord in bar 44 and combine all those notes. That's the A minor arc in the E form, and then the F sharp arc in the E form also. All of these are like F sharp minor with a flat 5. So here's F sharp minor, and we're flat in the 5th. And it's not something you can fret all at once. So the easiest thing would be to fret the first chord in bar 45 and the last chord in bar 45 and combine those notes. And here's the actual voice leading. We'll need the major scales involved. There's a G major scale fingering 7 here. You could call it F sharp Locrian, but it's on the 6th, 5th, and 1st string, it's ascending half step, whole step. On the 4th and 3rd string, it's ascending whole step, half step. And the 2nd string, it's just this whole step with fingers 2, 4. And then in the 4th position, you'll need this G major scale fingering 1 or G Ionian. And this 2nd finger will be on all the strings on the 5th fret, and the fingering is double whole step on the 2 bass strings, ascending half whole on the 3rd string, ascending half or half whole both on the 3rd string, because this note is also here, available here. Or then on the 2nd, 1st, and 1st string, it's double whole step, or just the double whole step, just the single whole step on the 2nd string. If you use the 5th of the scale here, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or you could fret 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now the actual voice leading. G major to A minor on strings 3, 2, 1. All the notes move up in tandem. It's pretty simple. G major, like part of this bar chord, to A minor, like part of this bar chord. And then the F sharp diminished is like an F sharp minor, but with a flat 5. This in the key of F sharp, not G, but F sharp. This is flat 3rd, 5th root, F sharp minor. But we went that 5th flat. Flat 3rd, flat 5th root. So our voicing is G to A minor, G to F sharp, diminished, G, A minor, G, F sharp, diminished. That's like a D7th with no root. You may have recognized that. And then on strings 4, 3, 2, again, part of the bar chords, G to A minor, and G to F sharp diminished, which is like F sharp minor here, part of this F sharp minor bar chord, but we have to flat the 5. Root, flat 3rd, 5th, in the key of F sharp, flat the 5th, root, flat 3rd, flat 5th. So we have G, A minor, G, F sharp diminished, triad, not diminished 7. Then in the strings 5, 4, 3, we have G, again part of this bar chord, but I grab it with those fingers. G, A minor, like part of this A minor bar chord. G, And then F sharp diminished is like part of this F sharp minor bar chord, but this time in F sharp, this for minor, this would be the fifth root, flat third. We need a flat fifth. Flat third, root, fifth root, flat third, or flat fifth root, flat third for diminished. So that was G, A minor, G, F sharp diminished. Then in the bass strings, we have G up here at the fifth position, and move in tandem G to A minor. Now, all the notes in the scale go up one scale tone. So if you know this fingering, G major scale here, you just take all of these three notes and move each of them up a step. This goes to here, this goes to here, and this goes to here. So you get in tandem all of those, G, A minor. And then going down, we have G major on string 654. We're going to F sharp minor, down to F sharp minor. This G in the D form would go to F sharp minor in the D form with flat third, fifth root of F sharp. But we need F sharp diminished, so this fifth needs to get flatted like this. So it's G major to F sharp diminished. Then the summary of the chords is G to A minor, G to F sharp diminished. G major scale tone, triad voice leading in the C form with root movement up a step like G to A minor, or down a step like G to F sharp diminished triad, that is. In the seventh position, the G chord tones are in a C form. Bar the seventh fret, and with your remaining fingers make a C chord, but with the little finger bar the sixth and fifth string both. And you can play those same notes by playing the chords you see in bar 50 on beat 1, and the last one, beat 4. And then combine those notes to make the G arc. Then the A minor arc is a D minor form, like moving the D minor from first position to eighth position, and doubling the note on the first string, the flat third on the fourth string here, and then on the fifth string add the root, and on the sixth string add the fifth. So altogether you have this, and you can play those more simply by playing the first three strings on beat 1 of bar 51, and the three bass strings on beat 4 of bar 51. F sharp diminished is going down, G major went to A minor here, up the root movement G to A, one step up the scale. Now G to F sharp is going G to F sharp down the scale, and the F sharp is in a arc which is not practical to fret, which is not possible to fret with one hand if you just have 5 fingers. But these notes on the first strings, 3 strings, are like a D minor chord shape, but with the flat 5. This is 5, 1, flat 3. We need flat 5, 1, flat 3. Then in the bass here, same idea. If this were F sharp minor, this would be fifth root, flat third, but we need diminished, so it's flat fifth, root, flat third. So you put those together, and you get this F sharp minor arpeggio in the arc shape. Sorry, need to flat the fifth. And here's the voice leading from G to A minor. The root name is going up a step, and the voice voices move in tandem, all three of them go up a step. So we have root third fifth of G, and then root third flat fifth, fifth root third of G, and then fifth root flat third of A minor. And the voice leading is that they all move up in tandem. Then back to G and go down to F sharp. All the notes go down the scale, one scale tone. And the scales used on these are the G major scale in the fifth position, which I call fingering 2, because this is 2 of the G major scale, or you could call it A Dorian. And G major in the 7th position, I call it fingering 3, or B Phrygian. And then a little bit of a G major scale fingering 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is like G Lydian, or C Lydian rather. And voice leading from G to A minor goes like this, G to A minor. Now you can take advantage of knowing those arcs, and G to F sharp diminished, all the notes moving up a step, G to A minor, all the notes moving down a step to F sharp diminished. Then on strings 4, 3, 2, the same. It's third, fifth root, and each note goes up a scale step to make this part of the A minor we looked at earlier. Or G, back to G, going to F sharp diminished. It's part of it's like this F sharp diminished in the first 3 strings, but taking the note in the first string down an octave to the 4th string, and then playing strings 4, 3, 2. So this is G, A minor, G, F sharp diminished. Then on strings 5, 4, 3, G is root third fifth, and to go to A minor, all the notes go up a step. And this is, you could say, like an A minor flatting the third of a major in the C form here, but we're flatting the third. And we're on strings 4, 3, 2. So G major to A minor, or G major to F sharp diminished. And then G major to A minor on strings 5, 4, 3. You have G major on 5, 4, 3. And then A minor on 5, 4, 3, moving all the notes up a scale tone. Back to G and to F sharp diminished. Notice those are double whole steps. Then G on the bass strings on 6, 5, 4. And all the notes move up in tandem to A minor here. And back to G and down to F sharp diminished that I showed you at the beginning. So those summarize. G major scale tone triad voice leading with G in the A-G form. The A form is here at the 10th fret, like an A chord moved up. And the bass, you need these 2 notes from the G form, like this G form, the root and the third, giving you all these. And you can also play those by playing the first chord in bar 57 and the last one. Then the A minor chord is in an A minor form in the treble and a G minor form in the bass. In the treble, it's like the top of this A minor bar chord. It's strings 3, 2, 1 and 4, 3, 2. Then move into this G minor form where I'm barring the 2 middle strings here, playing the 5th string, 15th fret with my 2nd finger here, and the 6th string A in the bass. and you can put those first and last chords in bar 58 together. To summarize that, then F sharp diminished is like F sharp minor at the 9th position, but instead of root, flat third, fifth, it's root, flat third, flat fifth. And to play that down an octave, it's from here, root, flat third, flat fifth. Again, like an F sharp minor, that would be this. Like the A minor I played up here a moment ago. But I'm flatting the fifth on this one. So these chords give you, on all the different voicings here, they give you the comparison of in the same form, a major, like G major, and A minor, and F sharp diminished, all of those in the same form, in G form for each one of those. Then here's the actual voice leading from G at the 12th fret, or at the 10th fret, in A form, moving in tandem up to A minor. All the notes move together, back to G, and then down to F sharp diminished. Remember, it's in the key of F sharp, it's root, flat third, flat fifth. And then on strings 4, 3, 2, you have G, and strings 5, 4, 3 are, 4, 3, 2 are fifth, root, third, and for the A minor, it's in its key, fifth, root, but flat third. So that's in parallel up, then back to G, and then we go down to F sharp diminished, which would be like this F sharp minor, but with a flat fifth. That's an F sharp diminished chord on the inside strings, and we just need this part. So here we have on the strings 4, 3, 2, G, A minor, G, F sharp diminished. Then on strings 5, 4, 3, you have G here with third, fifth, root. And then move all the notes up in tandem, and you get A minor with flat third, fifth, root, barring here. Back to G, and then down to F sharp diminished with flat third, flat fifth, root. Then in the bass G to A minor, move up in tandem, and G down to F sharp diminished.